Hi, welcome to Promo Insiders, an ASA Media podcast covering the topics that matter most to the promotional products industry. I'm executive editor Sarah Lewandowski, and today I'm joined by Michelle Parisi, business strategist and sales coach at Core Strength Strategies, and she is here to discuss finding and retaining sales talent. So thanks, Michelle, for joining the podcast. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's my pleasure.
So this has been a perpetual concern for our audience, especially over the last few years. The job market's been really tough. How can sales managers identify talent early on during the hiring process? What are some tips for that?
Well, one of the first things that I would advise is to do some preparation in advance of actually interviewing or even vetting resumes for that matter. One good exercise to do is to create an ideal profile of a salesperson that you're looking for your organization. Some, and not all sales positions are equal. Some sales positions require more upfront, we call them the hunter type salesperson, where you're doing more pursuing of lots of new opportunities. The farming type sales professional is someone who more so maybe maintains and grows existing business. And then you have jobs where you're looking for salespeople to do a little bit of all those things. So I think first you have to understand the skill sets needed and the nuance of the particular sales role that you're looking to fill in your organization. And then when you create that profile, it's going to be a little bit easier to identify folks who seem to meet the characteristics of the profile that you've created when you're actually interviewing them. So that upfront exercise goes a long way. Everyone brings their own unique individual approach, but you'll start to see some identifiers that are going to help you maybe narrow the scope of the candidates who you feel might be worthy of a repeat interview or somebody you want to get to know a little bit more.
And is there a way, one of the other concerns is, okay, we've found somebody we think is great, and they're with the company for a year, maybe two, and then they move on, and maybe it wasn't a great fit for them. Maybe their commitment to kind of seeing the company through some growth wasn't really there. Is there a way to kind of measure that, their commitment to sticking with the company and being there for that growth phase of the company and having
Sure.
that mindset of committing to it?
That's a great question. I want to go back a little bit to the interview process, because in addition to doing that ideal profile exercise, when you drill down to the questions and you might be looking at someone's resume, you want to try and get under the hood a little bit and ask what's motivating them. So how did they go about handling a challenging situation or overcoming an obstacle or achieving success and results? You're looking to see if they take initiative, if they're problem solvers, if they're willing to learn, if they're open to opportunities, if they don't mind trying things that are new. So again, I want to go back to the interview process, because if you're purposeful in your questions, you might uncover some of that commitment and willingness to grow in advance of hiring someone. So part of it comes down to being a little bit more informed before you hire someone. But then once you hire someone, I think the crux of long-term success for someone to grow and stay in an organization is actually communication. So giving feedback, letting someone know in real time what they're doing well, what maybe they can improve upon, or how they can learn from a situation. Younger generations in particular, Gen Z, for example, they have come up through an age of real-time information. It's instantaneous. The internet is at their fingertips at all times. They respond to that type of response as opposed to a mid-year or an annual review. Have frequent little mini check-ins. It's something that I think is critical for employees of all ages. Make them part of the process. What are the company goals? How does their role and their success fit into the company goals? And they want to feel like they're contributing to that. And then along with that comes expectations, setting realistic expectations, setting goals that are measurable to see how they're pacing for success. all of these things can be conveyed on a regular, ongoing basis, and it doesn't have to be a whole formal or elaborate process. Company culture is really big too. People want to be in an organization where those around them are committed and excited to be in the organization. So I'm going to say company culture goes a long way to retaining talent. And on the flip side of that, negative or conflicted company culture or vague guidelines as to what the role is or the company initiative is can also lead to turnover.
The other thing that I know companies have been struggling with is attracting younger generations because their expectations have changed as far as the benefits that come with the job, the
Mhm.
onboarding process, the training, the hand holding, how much do you sit with them and really walk them through it? How much is it sink or swim, right? How can small and medium-sized businesses compete in this particular area where, maybe what they can offer is limited compared to a larger organization?
That's an excellent question. And I deal with this with folks whom I work with all the time. So I'll just go out there and say millennials, Gen Z candidates and employees have high expectations. They have a heightened sense of purpose. So again, from kind of a more global perspective, they want to make sure that their core values are aligned with the core values of the company, and companies large and small. They can be doing things to reduce waste, to increase communication flow, to facilitate collaborative effort. It's a two-way street. I think that's really impactful, that this younger generation wants to make an impact and they want to feel that what they're doing is purposeful. And again, this can be applied to folks of all ages, but guide them to be the leaders of tomorrow. We can all learn from what this generation of folks has to offer. They might be technically more savvy. So I think if you go at it with an attitude of a two-way street, it may not be even and equal, but again, you're engaging them. You're speaking to them in a way that matters to them. I read an interesting article about using communication and language that's relatable to the younger generation, not using some kind of old catchphrase sayings that they can't identify with. They want you to be to the point. Again, they're looking for that feedback, but I think engagement is huge. And you don't have to be a big company to offer that. You can be a company with 3 or 4 employees, but if you have that shared purpose and intent and people are working collaboratively, again, that means setting realistic expectations and maybe challenging them to grow. But if they feel a part of things, that's going to keep them in an organization.
Well said. And I think as far as keeping talent for the long term. So once you've identified your talent, they've joined your company, you've onboarded them, things are going well. They've gotten past that kind of, hand holding phase or onboarding
Yep.
phase, right? And they're on their own now. How do you keep this talent for the long term so they're really there and committed to your company? What are the ways to kind of maintain that two-way communication, two-way street with your talent?
Well, I'm a big proponent in having periodic meetings so that people collectively are on the same page, again, aligned with the company goals and purpose and mission, but then also one-on-one meetings. And you mentioned something about they're onboarded, they're on their own, but we never want to leave sales folks completely on their own.
Yeah.
It's a challenging job. You hear a lot of no's. You're faced with a lot of intangible things that you have to face every day, even if you have a great product or service to sell. So that warrants regular check-ins and also caring about the entire person, their mental health, their personal health, their goals, their initiatives. So I think treating your employees as if they were your clients, from the standpoint of engaging and caring about them and the nurturing perspective, and don't just say, okay, sink or swim. A lot of organizations say, you know what, that person's outgoing. We gave them the manual, we onboarded them, now go. And they never check in and they never help them get to that next phase of advancing what they do on a daily basis. So I would say regular check-ins. Be creative with how you communicate. Again, if we're talking about millennials and Gen Z, They have their phones with them constantly. You can have fun little check-ins and games. I had a client who did a weekly Survey Monkey, 3, 4 questions every week. The main question stayed the same. It was related to the job at hand and their business, or maybe a project that the team was working on. One was, what fun thing did you do for the 4th of July? Are you okay? Do you need to talk? It was a really great way. It didn't take up a lot of time, and it was set up, and the owner just changed up 1 or 2 questions every week. Took a couple of minutes. It was like a weekly engagement. So the answers were individual, but sometimes he would share survey answers anonymously. And this was maybe a group of 12 people. So it wasn't a large company, but he engaged with the younger folks, and he met them by the means of communication that they were most comfortable engaging in. And I thought it was a great way to keep the team very cohesive and on board with what the goals were, but also by asking that personal question, are you okay? Can I help you with anything? Sometimes things come up a little bit more organically through this, I'd say, non-direct form of communication that this generation is more comfortable with. So know who you're working with.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it. And for more sales tips, please head to asicentral.com/news. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Sarah. Take care.